Bulasia and welcome once again to the JustPeace TALANOA BURE at COVID-19, a platform that brings together women, men, youth leaders, stakeholders, and representatives from various networks and sectors engaging at the forefront of disaster. As we are journeying together during the struggle, we revisit our values and practices that are close to our hearts. That includes our culture of hospitality, and the value of sharing and receiving is more about giving, and how with these values in our hearts, we are faced with the climate change and COVID-19. Without proper preparation, the online school and home virtual education was shoved at our doorsteps. As mothers, we now wear extra hats while managing our children in parenting with different age levels, and for example, with 6 kids in the family, from a toddler, a kindergarten, primary school age, and secondary students. Mothers now also are teachers and trying to figure out how do they manage within the different levels of learning needs as children, and also having Zoom classes with limited resources to cater for the number of children in a home. Let us listen more to the TALANOA. Joining us at the BURE panel today is Raki Tuiloma from the Edenville Youth, Turak, and Emele Buloulekaleka, a mother and women leader. Join us, here with us is our very own host, Paulo Baleinakorodawa, our program director, Transcend Oceania.
Welcome to Transcend Oceania's JustPeace TALANOA BURE at COVID-19, a platform that brings together community representatives, leaders, women, and youth to share stories and priorities that hold value to them, to their people, and to their vanua. Through their experiences, there are lessons learned, recommendations, and possible solutions and plans to meet current situations. Here with me in this episode are Emele Buloulekaleka, representing Davuilevu community women, and Raki Tuiloma, representing Edenville Youth representative. Buloulekaleka, Emele? Buloulekaleka, Raki.
Mr. Paulo.
Thank you for joining us in this dialogue and in this episode. We will begin our TALANOA tonight by you two talking about values that are most important for you in your culture. And then we will move on to the other 2 segments, which I will introduce later on. But for this segment, let's talk about what's the most important value or values for you in your culture. And we begin with you, Emele.
For me, the most important value I would think of in my culture is the big heart. Growing up, I would see us, we were taught never to eat and look down. In the sense, indirectly saying, when you're eating and you're looking up, you are seeing other people walking past, and you have to call out, Maikana, or come and have lunch, come and share my breakfast. That value, in the sense, that's one thing I would like my children to keep practicing. And that's one thing I value, and I will want them to keep, I want that to be passed on with them.
I find that really interesting, Emele, when you talk about the big heart. So for you, it means being concerned about other people, knowing that there are people around you, that you are not alone, and you want to share, you want to be part of their lives. Is that what you're trying to say?
For me, having a big heart, for us, in my culture, even though you know you have little or just enough for your family, you still have that big heart feeling that you have to share whatever you have. Whether you know that person has it or has more than you have, still you have that courtesy to ask them, to let them know that they will be part of whatever you have, your luxury, whether it's food or materialistic things. That is what I feel as my value in my culture.
So you were treating other people as important also. It's not just you, but people are important, and therefore whatever I have, whether I have big things or small things, I still share. Thank you. Very good, Emele. We will come back to you. Raki, I understand you come from a mixed ethnicity, just by your name. What are some of the things that you would like to share as the most important things that you value in your culture or cultures that you represent?
Thank you, and thank you for having me on the show. For me, in my culture, it's something similar to Emele's, but for me, it's a collaborative approach where the community takes part in a day-to-day basis of survival, or the resilience for survival. Given what the crisis has imposed on us, people have come together from whatever differences we have, whatever ethnic groups we come from. People have come together to support each other. Given the protocols, given the lockdown imposed on us, people still come together to lend a hand. And that's what's special about cultural values that I value. We still look out for each other despite the economic downturns that we have, the social unrest that we have, and so many other issues that concerns it. But we still have that thought to leave your home and just take something for a family member or for a friend, just the thought of others.
So it's the coming together, whether for in good times or in bad times, you still come together.
Correct,
whether we have disasters or whether life is normal, we still come together. And in that come together, you are supporting each other in their lives. Excellent. So that's really good. And I see the big heart and the coming together or communal living is really connecting very well with what you two are both sharing in terms of your values. Are there other important things that you value in your culture apart from just the big heart?
For me personally, it's the respect. We learn to respect elderly people. We learn to respect whether they are the same ethnic group as you are or another race. There's nowhere to see someone, that person is different from me because that person has this. No. Being brought up in a family, being brought up in a big family, I would say, we were always having other ethnic groups with us. So it was not just because we are a multiracial country, it's also because we were brought up in a sense that you have to respect them. Whether something is different, you have to have a common ground. So your culture teaches you that.
Thank you. You were watching Transcend Oceania's JustPeace TALANOA BURE at COVID-19. Join us after this break. Welcome back. We are joined in this TALANOA by Emele Buloulekaleka from Davuilevu Community Women and Raki Tuiloma from the Edenville Youth here in Turek. And so in the previous segment, you talked about the things that you value most, and you talked about the big heart and respect, and you talk about people being together, coming together, working together, and being concerned about each other. Let's move the TALANOA now to talk about, given the challenges that we face, what are the emerging issues of concern for you as a woman, for you as a young man, as a youth, and representing a women's group? What are issues of concern, and who are most affected by these issues that you're raising? Emele.
Okay, one of the issues most women go through now, just because of this pandemic, would be domestic violence, I would say. Given the fact that most of us are drawing the line, we don't really go out and talk about this sensitive issue, I would say. They might think that I'm vulnerable. I'm a vulnerable woman. If I say I'm going through this, I'm going through that. I think one thing that's the main issue for me as a woman is to have the ability to have an open-minded woman to grasp those things and how I will help another fellow woman how to go about those issues. For me personally, for a woman, it's domestic violence.
And so you feel that's the pressing issue for you right now, as faced by a lot of women during this pandemic?
Yes.
Okay, very good. We'll come back to you, Emele. Raki, what are the pressing issues for you at the moment?
For me, it's I would say human security priorities that we are currently facing. It might have been not very sensitive before, but what COVID has brought upon us, really, it has really surfaced all these issues. And the people that are most affected, coming from a community where I live, I see that every family or everyone in the community are affected in whatever way that they are affected with, from economic downturns, from loss of jobs, imposing of lockdowns on us, people restricted from their usual whatever they used to do. They are confined in their own spaces, and it has caused a lot of frustration, confusion. People are confused whether what to do after this pandemic, and coming about with all the conspiracy theories of vaccinations, all this. It has caused a lot of confusion. People are frustrated in their own confined spaces, and it has caused it has surfaced a lot of issues coming from the human security priorities issues. So yeah.
That's very interesting that you are talking about human security issues. In what ways are these expressed in tangible ways in the families, like the fears, the frustrations, the restrictions, and all this? How does it impact the families, and how does it impact young people particularly?
Given a scenario, if the sole breadwinner loses out on a job or is told to leave because he decides not to be vaccinated, and all those frustrations comes in, may cause disagreements within couples, or may stir relationships, may stir decisions made in the relationships, just because of what's being imposed on them. And I think COVID-19 has really surfaced a lot of issues concerning family issues. Women continue to be abused at confined spaces. They don't have the ability to access whatever authorities that are responsible in taking care of them because of lockdown and all those things. So it has really pushed pressure on families, especially the Itoke, given that it's a taboo to talk about issues. So it really has put a lot of pressure on us.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And it's really very important that you are sharing this. Emele, how does the current situation actually affect women? Apart from the rise in gender-based violence that you talked about, but on a day-to-day basis, how are women affected?
Women are affected in so many ways because we are somewhat, I would call, multitasked. Because we would come in as a mom, and there are working mothers, and there are those that are single mothers. Looking at all this, having a similar background, there will be a lot of problem arising. For me, having my kids at home, and we have Zoom classes. I have to amend with the chores that I'm doing at home, with the cooking, and the timetable I have for my kids, who's going in at what time. And I don't have only one child. I have 6 kids who are in school. I have to start from the one in kindergarten. He's also on Zoom classes. We are living in a fast-paced times now. A lot of things will be piled up from the women at home.
And so it puts a lot of pressure on
Yeah.
the women. So
Yeah.
you now become a mother,
Yeah.
you now become a teacher, you now become somebody
A
else,
doctor.
a doctor.
Yeah. When you have to do something and one of your kids decides to run out or rush out and is injured, and
Yeah.
you have to leave this one while you become a teacher here, and you run there, you become a doctor there.
And attend to the
Yeah.
injury.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's leave it there. You are watching Transcend Oceania's JustPeace TALANOA BURE at COVID-19. Don't go away. Join us in the next segment. And welcome back. And we are joined here by Emele Buloulekaleka of Davuilevu women's rep in the Davuilevu community, and Raki Tuiloma of Edenville Youth. So in the previous segments, we've talked about how important values are to you in your culture. And in the last segment, we talked about pressing issues that have come up now because of our current situation, but also because of how maybe these values are not really important in the lives of people now, given the so many changes that we are facing. Let's move the TALANOA now to talk about what are lessons learned so far for you as a woman, working with women and being part of that women community, and Raki with the youth of Edenville, which I believe is a suburban community here in the capital in Suva. And then the second part of our TALANOA is then to talk about what key recommendations do you want to put forward to your community, to your church, to your leaders, coming out of these issues that you face. So let's begin the TALANOA with you talking about what are the lessons you've learned so far. Let's just talk about lessons learned now, and then get us to talk about the recommendations. What are the lessons you've learned so far, Emele?
I've learned a lot of lessons being a woman. I would say you have to be on my shoe. But for me, one of the very important thing that I've learned as a woman when I come across a lot of crises with my fellow women sisters is that I have to understand, I have to look at the issue from their point of view. I have to have an open heart, an open mind. I have to understand where they're coming from, At times, people, when they sit down and someone comes up with a certain complaint or certain issue they're coming across, we tend to be very judgmental. One thing I've learned is that I have to wait, be very biased, not be biased. I have to be very neutral, and I have to put myself in her shoes, and I have to see things from her perspective.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is coming out of the value that you talked about earlier in the previous segment, the big heart that you've been taught to be in knowing and understanding and being concerned about other women. I'm not sure if that is right.
Having a big heart, meaning, okay, for example, a sponge. When you take a sponge and you put it where there's water spilled, when you put the sponge there, it absorbs all the water. You have to learn to have that absorbent spirit, I would say. You have to grasp things. You have to learn to know. You have a value that you have to learn to respect as well, instead of pointing fingers, instead of degrading somebody. You have to learn to have that heart to build and grasp things and hold on to it and process it and learn from it, and then you can understand what they're going through.
So that's the big lesson for you now. I mean, you've talked about, you said there's many lessons, but the key lesson for you is being concerned, and for other women, having the ability to listen, having the ability to reach out to them because of the problems they face. Raki, there's probably many lessons too for you, but can you talk about some of those lessons you've learned so far as a young person?
Thank you. For me, personally, I've learned to self-teach myself to get through this process. I've also taught myself to allow my mental health to process what has been imposed on us. Not only Fiji is facing the crisis, not only Fiji faces natural disasters and all these climate change issues. So I've allowed myself to process all that has happened, allow me to participate in whatever way I can in helping. Also through social media, I've given, in my community where I live, when a case arises, either positive or the primary context, I make sure I contact them or message them to allow them to process whatever that they are facing, whatever news that they have received, because mental health is something that is a concern too. It may affect you after this crisis or while you're going through the crisis, so it's very important. To me, one lesson learned is I've taught myself to process whatever we are going through.
Have you been a critical person, or is, because that's what I'm hearing from you, or is this something that has come up now because of the current experiences and situations you're facing?
I've always tried to teach myself in all aspects of life. I do most researches on my own, on like life-threatening diseases and all these things. So yeah, when this crisis came about, it furthered more. It had taught me more on how you can self-teach yourself on very important issues, how you can converse with your families and friends. At home, I'm like a home-based nurse. Whenever someone is sick, I make sure that they let them process it, because like the current news now, when someone is sick, don't go to the hospital. You might get COVID. So at home, I make sure the care is given to them at home, allow them to process it, that it's not what it is, it's just what you think it is.
Given all these, Raki, the lessons learned, what's one key recommendation that you want to put forward to the youth of Edenville? And I understand you're also a Methodist church youth. What is one key recommendation you'd like to put forward?
Well, for me, I just want the people listening in to learn what I've explained, to learn from it, and just let you process through whatever you're going through, and definitely you'll get through whatever you're going through. Yeah.
Thank you, Raki. Emele, what's one key recommendation you'd like to put forward, given your experiences as a woman, the lessons you've learned? What's one recommendation you want to put forward?
One recommendation I would push forward is that for other women to know that there is someone out there who can listen to you, who can understand you. Whatever you go through, whatever you are facing, I want you to know, I want them to know that there is someone there to help and that they are not facing it alone. And we are living in a time that you can share about it and you are not vulnerable.
Excellent.
No more.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Emele. And thank you, Raki, for joining us in this TALANOA. And thank you, viewers, for joining us.
As we conclude with our Just Peace TALANOA BURE at COVID-19, we are reminded once again to enable people living just peace and non-violence in Oceania and the Pacific, and here in Fiji, we need to be both mindful and maintain safety protocol, mask up, home isolation may be tough. At the same time, the need for healthcare, leaving no one behind, for inclusive peace, security, and safety with dignity amidst the changes and transitions we are going through. I'm Adi Vasulevu at Transcend Oceania. Join us at the same time next week. Binakova Kalevu.